What's really, really good about emotional intelligence rather than IQ is that when you do your IQ assessments, it's static. You have that number or you have that category of intelligence awarded to you for that particular time. What's different with emotional intelligence is that actually it's a dynamic state that can be changed, which is actually really great for everybody because obviously we can keep learning, we can keep growing. So on a wider social intelligence level, you've got EQ not only knowing your internal states better, but also understanding other people's emotions as well. So it's dynamic in the sense as you can only go as far as understanding other people as you do yourself. So you've always got to start with knowing what motivates you, what drives you, so that you can better support and connect yourself before understanding the people around you so that you can better connect and support them. Hope that makes sense. So 6 Seconds is an EQ global network of practitioners, and they basically split it up into 3 areas: know yourself, choose yourself, and give yourself. So know yourself is about emotional self-awareness, not necessarily just self-awareness, but emotional self-awareness. So we were talking about the iceberg and what lies beneath. So being able to recognize the emotions that you have, but also how those emotions motivate you or limit you. So when you feel what you feel, does it drive you to action, or actually does it make you not want to do anything? That fight or flight motion as well. So part of the self-awareness thing is reflecting and recognizing your strengths, your patterns of behavior. What is it that makes you lose it? What is it that frustrates you? What is it that makes you get impatient? Are you aware of all of those things, or do you just accept them? Well, I just get impatient, or yes, I shot the messenger. So what's your automatic pilot reactions that you have? And self-awareness allows you to be conscious of not only the impact that it has on yourself, but also the impact that you have on others. Because if something does frustrate you, if something's bubbling underneath and then it comes out, it's not just you that it affects. So reflecting and recognizing your own patterns is actually really, really important in terms of emotional self-awareness. Choose yourself is about self-navigation. And we talked about navigation, but how do you do that with a positive stance so that it affects your communication in a positive way? The navigation is about the ability to actually, when you've got a disruptor or a derailer, what we've been calling triggers, when you're faced with that, how do you take an optimistic look about, okay, well, what do I want the end result to be? I don't particularly want to react. I don't want to snap at somebody. I don't want to shoot the messenger. What do I want to do? So actually being able to take a step back and think about it before giving yourself and navigating through that derailer. So it's called self-regulation. If anyone does read up on emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman actually splits it into 5 areas, and after self-awareness comes self-regulation. And this is what he's talking about. It's taking a pause, taking a step back before communicating or taking action. And as managers, you can use that in conflict management, you can use that in change management, or just even just a high-stake conversation.
You talk about triggers. Baby, stick a camera in my house and watch my 4-year-old trigger me on a daily basis. I think it's the greatest lesson in emotional intelligence and learning to control your emotions, because the difference between many of your employees and my 4-year-old is that my 4-year-old doesn't know boundaries. So she just comes to find me. Whereas in a workplace, there's a bullying and harassment policy and I can walk away and most people will understand I need space. Not the 4-year-old. She's relentless and she's right there. So for all of you who have children, you have the most amazing playground to practice in right there at home for your triggers.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was doing a facilitation and somebody said, one of my biggest triggers, and it just puts me into the wrong frame of mind for the rest of the day, is my 3-year-old always takes forever to put their shoes on. We're about to leave the house and they say, oh, Dad, I need to put my shoes on. And they won't accept any help. They have to put it on themselves. And it fires him up and he gets frustrated because he knows he's going to be late. And if he's late for work, la, la, la. And there's a knock-on effect. So he ends up shouting at his child, why aren't you putting your shoes on quicker? Or why aren't you letting me help? So after the emotional intelligence, he recognized that it was him. It was his frustration. It was his inability to manage that. So he said, okay, so what I did was I got up 15 minutes earlier with my daughter and then recognized that actually 15 minutes earlier meant the knock-on effect was that I was going to be early. So it was just him being able to reflect and take stock of the situation in its whole, how he changed his behavior because somebody else was triggering him through no fault of their own. They didn't know. They're also 2 or 3 years old. But just by changing the situation, the dynamics of that situation, he was in a much better frame of mind. The daughter was in a much better frame of mind. But he was so grateful for just being able to stop and reflect.
Absolutely. And mine's not too dissimilar, except using the traffic light kind of concept. Okay, I'm getting a red light. If I keep pushing, I know the path this is going to head down, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And I know it's going to end up in a tantrum, and then we're still going to be late anyway. So it's about acknowledging there is a red light there and then suppressing the way, but it was handling the emotion at the time. So going to her in that moment of need and addressing what she needed to get over that obstacle. Otherwise, we were just going to be in this power struggle. And there's so many different philosophies on parenting, but at the end of the day, the 4-year-old always wins because she'll always hijack the day and we'll all be late and then I'll get mad and, it'll all go completely wrong.
What you did there by recognize it is the third tenet. You gave yourself, you were able to recognize and understand how they were feeling, what they needed, to put yourself in her shoes, to actually say, okay, this needs to happen. I'm going to give myself to you. And actually that leads nicely into the third tenet there, where you can empathize and then you can connect with the person for a better outcome. So it allows the individual to feel understood. It allows the individual to feel that they've got influence in that dynamic. That's exactly what you need to empower your employees, your team and everything. And it just allows for that greater connection. But you can't get to that stage unless you know what your triggers are, you know what your emotional self is about before being able to understand other people's emotions and motivators. So all of that, know yourself, choose yourself, give yourself, is 3 great steps in terms of anyone that wants to learn how to become more emotionally intelligent. But leadership skills with all of that is driven by those 3 things. So you can't be a strong leader without being able to understand, navigate, and then, connect with your employees.